There we are. Hey, John.
Hey.
We're back. So we got another book episode.
Yeah, again, this one, courtesy of a wonderful reader who said, "Hey, could you please do something on Beedle the Bard?" Right when Nick and I are like, "What are we gonna do these last four talks?" Like, Beedle the Bard, we got it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do Beedle the Bard. Great. Ran over to my shelf. What do I want to talk about? Which one of these stories do I want to talk about?
So this will be our 23rd book that we're doing.
Wow. Great. We've done a couple where we did Christmas Pig, Troubled Blood. Yeah. Were those the only two adventures we did? Two conversations?
I think they're the only doublers we've done. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're coming up on the birthday, man. I can feel the birthday energy coming up here,
which is important.
That's right.
This is our Kanreki celebration. So, J.K. Rowling was born in 1965, which by the Chinese calendar was the year of the wood snake. And we haven't had a wood snake year since until this year. So we're wood snake again, because the Chinese calendar cycles around the 12 astrological animals, the 5 astrological elements. So you've got a calendar of 60 years. This year is J.K. Rowling's birth year again. So in Japanese culture, and John and I are both Nipponophiles, this is her Kanreki. This is the celebration of her rebirth. So we're wearing the red hats to celebrate. I'm wearing my Royal Military Police hat. And John is over there in Oklahoma City with his debranded MAGA hat.
Terrible. You triggered me, Nick.
Yeah. So, trigger warning, guys. So this, I'm sat here by my lake, and John is over there in his yurt-like shed, because we are
my shed-like yurt here.
Your shed-like yurt, because we are exploring J.K. Rowling's work through the lens of her metaphor for her creative process, which is where she gets her inspiration via her lake. So this comes from her subconscious ideas, her unresolved issues, all the people she's met, all the books she's read, and she gets this raw idea. She takes it over to the shed where she applies her artistry to fashion it into the literature we all know and love. And today, we're going to be sharing lake and shed perspectives on Beedle the Bard. Now, this has an unusual genesis. So, J.K. Rowling had finished and published Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows to unprecedented worldwide acclaim. And it was the end of her series. She's spoken about when she was writing the final pages in the Balmoral Hotel. It was like a bereavement. There was a grief that this story that had been with her for 25 years was now coming to an end. One of the things she wanted to do, there were 6 people who she felt had been instrumental in bringing Harry Potter to the world. She wanted to give them a gift to show her appreciation, and jewelry, frankly, wasn't going to cut it. So what she did was she created, and when I say created, she hand wrote this textbook that's mentioned in the books. The tales.
It's not textbook.
Not a textbook. Although the conceit in the most recent publication is it's one of the textbooks, but it's a book that Dumbledore bequeaths, I think, to Hermione. The The Tales of Beedle the Bard, which is a book of fairy tales for wizarding children. She handwrites them out and illustrates them. She takes them to a company in Edinburgh called Hamilton and Inches, who are a silversmith, to create the clasps and the buckles. It's bound in Moroccan leather with handmade silver ornaments to give to these 6 people. Now,
do we know who the 6 people are, Nick?
We only know of 2 of them. So we know one of them is Barry Cunningham. Now, he was in charge of the children's section of Bloomsbury when they signed J.K. Rowling up. Interestingly, he left Bloomsbury in 2001. So it was just after Goblet of Fire. But obviously, J.K. Rowling credits Barry as being a key decision maker that got this published. We know that another one was given to Arthur Levine. So he was her American editor. He was in charge of the Levine imprint of Scholastic. And we know to this day, J.K. Rowling is, let's say, friendly with Arthur Levine. We know that the last time she's recorded as being in New York, actually she went to meet Levine, and Levine posted about that on Twitter. We only know those 2. So there's another 4 mystery individuals that have received a copy.
You gotta hope that Christopher Little is one of them. Was one of them.
Yeah.
You gotta hope that Neil Blair, because he's just taken over everything at that point, right? But the next 2, boy, that's tough.
Yeah, we just don't know. But J.K. Rowling decided that if she's going to make 6 books, she has to make a 7th. So the number 7, and I think this is the first time this has really been explored, but the number 7 seems to be quite important to our author. Maybe worth a little search to see if we can see any other instances of this number 7 being important for her. So she decided to make a 7th, and this was going to go to auction in 2007 for charity. So the charity was the Children's Voice, but I think all of that is sort of rolled up within the Children's High Level group that became Lumos, her signature charity. To great fanfare, it went to Sotheby's in late 2007. They put an estimate on it of £50,000, which is $77,000, which is not bad for a handwritten book. It finally went down on the hammer to just short of £2 million, which is just short of $4 million. It was sold.
Is that adjusted for inflation, Nick?
No. So if we adjust it for inflation, it is, I think, and I'm going from memory, but I think it's about $6.5 million in today's prices. It was bought by a fine art dealer who, it turns out, were a cover for the Amazon Corporation. This is an American company, John. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. They seem to be doing quite. Yeah, they seem to be doing quite well. So at this stage, people were looking at photographs that were taken for the auction to try and get as many words out of this book as was humanly possible to try and understand what the stories were. But fairly quickly, so less than a year, Rowling had decided to release an edition for the general public. This was to be for in aid of Lumos. Now there's some additions to the published work, and there were several different editions as well. So the handwritten ones are just the text of the stories. And we know from Barry Cunningham's book, which he later auctioned, that there's a personal message as well in his book. But other than that, it's just the text of the stories. Within the published book, we get an introduction from J.K. Rowling. We get explanatory notes, which are almost as long as the stories from Dumbledore. So it's a much meatier book in the one that was published.
It's basically the annotations, his commentary.
Yeah.
My edition says it's translated from the ancient runes by Hermione Granger. I mean, I'm loving it.
So I think in the handwritten ones, again, I'm going from memory, but I think it says translated from the runes by J.K. Rowling rather than Hermione Granger. There was a facsimile edition of the handwritten book that Amazon purchased, available in a limited edition. If you manage to pick one of those up, you're doing rather well, because the cheapest one I could find that was in poor condition is now selling for about £200 in the UK. But again, although that's a facsimile edition, there's some changes to it. So there's a subtext at the bottom that says with explanatory notes by Dumbledore. So my feeling is in that edition. It also came with a booklet, so maybe in a separate booklet or within the printed text, it includes all that Dumbledore text. In terms of inspiration for those stories, I mean, it's clearly based on the books that by the Grimm's fairy tales, Hans Christian Andersen, that they are they're old world fairy tales in that they don't pull their punches very much in terms of gruesomeness. There's some great commentary in there from Dumbledore, and Dumbledore really is a self-insert, I feel, for J.K. Rowling. So she talks about when the Tales of Beedle the Bard has been banned by angry parents because they don't want to show a mixed muddle wizarding marriage. There's a wonderful parody of this wizarding writer of fairy tales that thinks everything should be sweet and kittenish, who's got the first name of Beatrix. So maybe a little jab at Beatrix Potter, although some of her stories could be fairly bloodthirsty as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say that farmer, he's not pulling his hoe. He's killing animals. Anyway,
the only one we know seems to have had a direct influence, or story that's had a direct influence on it. So this was on a web chat that J.K. Rowling took part on, and somebody asked, were the Deathly Hallows based on any real world myths or fairy tales? And J.K. Rowling said, perhaps the Pardoner's Tale.
Chaucer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a wow. Chaucer's actually the first English speaking literary alchemist of alchemy in Chaucer. And so that was a whoa, okay, we got she's touched the mark. That's great. Wow. What about the context in terms of the gay Dumbledore event at the open book tours reading in New York City?
So the handwritten books must have been started before that. My impression is that the idea of the books was certainly started before publication of Deathly Hallows, and the books were completed certainly before that book tour, because we know that one was auctioned in late 2007. Then we have the book tour, and we have the question about Dumbledore ever being married, and then we have the print.
Was he ever been in love? Was it a marriage question or a love question?
You could you could be right, but I think it was marriage, which was the because asking if he'd ever been in love is quite a binary yes or no, and Rowling could have said yes, but married, certainly at that stage, but before a gay marriage was I think anywhere, let alone common, triggered Rowling to say, well, not the marrying type because.
Okay.
So I think that tour was in between the handwritten and the published. So the Dumbledore notes, or our evidence for the Dumbledore notes, would have been post-book tour.
And so Dumbledore has become notorious as the gay wizard. I mean, I think it was seconds between her making the announcement she always thought of Dumbledore as gay to T-shirts appearing on the streets of New York City with "I am a gay wizard." That event was, you really had to have lived through it.
Yeah.
I know you came into this late, but Rowling couldn't, belch without people speculating on what she had for breakfast. I mean, it was. She was such a star figure. I mean, she was put up for things like Person of the Year after the thing. That gay Dumbledore announcement was a huge thing. So I'm just curious. I mean, do you think that had any relationship to her deciding to include the Dumbledore commentary, or that was just a convenience for her to be able to do what she wanted to do there? Was she trying to Dumbledore in your face here?
Yeah, I mean,
he's still Dumbledore. He's still wise. He's still this wonderful guy. Yeah.
It might have been an additional incentive to have all that Dumbledore commentary. I think probably less of an incentive was if you're gonna put a book out there for sale, you need a few more words than would just the stories. And another incentive would be all of those hot topics for her. What is suitable for a child to read? What should children's literature look like? How do we feel about books that upset us? Should they be taken off of the bookshelves? She has an opening to get all that stuff out there. And in somebody else's voice, so nobody can be that angry at her.
Oh, they were. I mean, yeah, this is a delightful book, and Rowling has spoken many times about her love of myth and fairy tales. I mean, she's obviously a real student of mythology. I think she said it in that piece that she wrote for the University of Exeter Classics Department. Nick, I was going blank. What is it? What was the name of that
nymph again?
Nymph. I think she wrote in there that she had more books now on mythology than I did when I was an undergraduate, and it was my. I know. Please don't write to me and say they don't have minors in UK institutions, but yeah, it was in fact her academic minor, and now. And she won an award, right, from the Hans Christian Andersen Society or something.
Was she? Yeah, the Hans Christian Andersen. It was the first award, so it was the inaugural Hans Christian Andersen Award for services to children's literature.
Yeah, we were talking before about whether she was a royal or not. When you see her, with the, I don't know, was the Danish queen or something who someone presented this award?
Yes, the queen, I think.
And she was clearly, more than respectful of the thing. She wasn't going to do a "hail fellow, well met," slap her on the back type thing. It's just a little curtsy, that whole thing. But yeah, this is Rowling's sweet spot. That she has this mythic archetypal framework, especially it works for children. It has to be something that has morality in it. It has to be, as you were suggesting, it's simultaneously fantastic and gruesomely realistic.
Yeah.
So that it's going to penetrate. This is not going to be something you're going to just forget easily. And so when we were asked to look at this book, which we had passed over as not being really a full book, I was delighted because we're getting near the end here, so I'm trying to sum this up here. But what I think Rowling's work is really about. And we talked a little bit about ring theory. That was. Isn't it funny that the thing I thought was going to take a weekend, it was the shortest, conversation that we had, Nick. It was the ring writing piece. But I hope in that ring writing piece, I said that the meaning is in the middle. Whenever Rowling writes something, you find the center of it. And that's where she's going to tell you that the murderer is hidden in there, or what she's really the point she's trying to make about how the story begins and ends is in the center. That truism about chiasmus, that the meaning is in the middle. When you open this book up, Nick, what is the central story in this?
Now you've got the physical book there, John. You can just open it up and tell me.
Wow, isn't it having a codex copy convenient, Nick? Not to be alliterative or anything, but yeah, we start off with the wizard in the hopping pot, the fountain of fair fortune. Then we have the warlock's hairy heart. Then Babbity Rabbity and her cackling stump, and the tale of the three brothers. Now, the story we get in Deathly Hallows is the tale of the three brothers. Pretty much the same. I would say exactly the same as it is inside the books. But the central story, and the one that is certainly the most gruesome in the thing, is that you can't. Dumbledore's commentary has a story about someone who was Beatrix Bloxam, the author of that, the sanitized version. It tells the story about how Beatrix Bloxam was so upset by the story that she never rewrote it for the Toadstool Tales, which are the dumbed down version or the sanitized version of Beedle the Bard. This story is. Dumbledore calls it a grisly tale. And in brief, you have a warlock who is, at that point, is a wizard that is skilled in combat, and clearly a prince of some kind. He doesn't want to be vulnerable to affection and empathy, and so he locks away his heart in a silver casket in a dungeon. And he lives his life quite happily. His parents die, doesn't bother him at all. No grief, no remorse, and he's just loving life. His servants, providing for his comfort. When he overhears two servants saying, basically, what a loser our boss is. He doesn't have a wife, doesn't have a child, doesn't have any kind of companionship. And the other guy says, "Oh yeah." Well, this sends the warlock around the twist and decides, I'm going to get myself a bride she's as rich as I am, and she's beautiful, and everybody wants her. And he doesn't have to hunt for it. She just appears, in his duchy, that like on command. It's a fairy tale, right? And he immediately goes into full pursuit mode, and nobody can believe it. Basically, the cold and indifferent and passionless prince has suddenly become one who's doing everything possible to win the princess's heart. And he does. He's courting her, has a big feast in her honor. Everybody comes to it. And at the feast, he all but proposes. And the maiden sat upon a throne beside the warlock, who spake low, imploying words of tenderness he had stolen from the poets without any idea of their true meaning. The maiden listened, puzzled, and finally replied, "You speak well, warlock, and I would be delighted by your attentions, if only I thought you had a heart." Well, the warlock says, I know exactly where I keep that, you know. And so they shuffle on down to the locked dungeon where he kept his greatest treasure. And there, in an enchanted crystal casket, was the warlock's beating heart. Now, I don't know if you can see this illustration in the thing there, but she draws the hairy heart. Quite anatomically correct, incidentally. It was long since disconnected from eyes, ears, and fingers. It had never fallen prey to beauty, or to a musical voice, or to the feel of silken skin. It was shrunken and covered in long black hair. She screams. She's totally freaked out. Put it back where it belongs. And he does it. He cuts open his chest and he puts the heart back into his chest to make her feel better. Big mistake. Now you are healed and will know true love, cried the maiden, and she embraced him. Well, this pierced the newly awakened heart like spears, okay? Its appetites had grown powerful and perverse in its long confinement, and it goes on the attack, all right? Anyway, the princess and the warlock have been gone for a long time. People finally start to look for them. They go down the dungeon and they find them, and a most dreadful sight awaited them there. The maiden lay dead upon the floor, her breast cut open, and beside her crouched the mad warlock, holding in one bloody hand a great, smooth, shining scarlet heart, which he licked and stroked, vowing to exchange it for his own. In his other hand he held his wand, trying to coax from his own chest the shriveled, hairy heart, but the hairy heart was stronger than he was and refused to relinquish its hold upon his senses or to return to the coffin in which it had been locked for so long. Before the horror-struck eyes of his guests, the warlock cast aside his wand and seized a silver dagger. Vowing never to be mastered by his own heart, he hacked it from his chest. For one moment, the warlock knelt triumphant, with a heart clutched in each hand. Then he fell across the maiden's body and died. I mean, this is the ugliest form of the Romeo and Juliet finish you can get, and she draws that illustration. Woo! Nick!
Now that's a significant story because of all the stories that are in that book. This is the only one that is completely invented for that book. So we know the Tale of the Three Brothers is an important plot point in Deathly Hallows. The Wizard and the Hopping Pot, the Fountain of Fair Fortune, and Babbity Rabbity were all mentioned in the text of Deathly Hallows. Hairy Heart wasn't. That's entirely fresh for this book.
Wow. Rowling in the Southby's write-up to get a big donation. Obviously, the write-up was very successful, Nick. You know, she got a $2 million bid. Okay, the Tales of Beedle the Bard, she says, is really a distillation of the themes found in the Harry Potter books. And writing it has been the most wonderful way to say goodbye to a world I loved and lived in for 17 years. Now, Dumbledore jumps right into that distillation of the themes. In his commentary on the Hairy Heart, he says, the hero in this tale is not interested in a simulacrum of love that he can create or destroy at will. He wants to remain forever uninfected by what he regards as a kind of sickness, and therefore performs a piece of dark magic that would not be possible outside of a storybook. He locks away his own heart. The resemblance of this action to the creation of a Horcrux has been noted by many writers. I mean, this is like the Lethafold being like the Dementor. Although Beedle's hero is not seeking to avoid death, he is dividing what was clearly not meant to be divided, body and heart rather than soul. And in doing so, He is falling foul of the first of Adalbert Waffling's fundamental laws of magic. Say that 3 times fast. He is falling foul of the first of Adalbert Waffling's fundamental laws of magic. Rowling alliterative gone wild. Okay, now here's what Adalbert Waffling says. Again, so we've got Rowling writing Dumbledore, citing an authority, but that's a big red flag. This is important. Tamper with the deepest mysteries, the source of life, the essence of self, only if prepared for consequences of the most extreme and dangerous kind. Now, Dumbledore is here saying that the heart is the source of life and the essence of self, and the deepest mystery of the human person. Sure enough, back to Dumbledore, sure enough, in seeking to become superhuman, this foolhardy young man renders himself inhuman. The heart he has locked away slowly shrivels and grows hair, symbolizing his own descent to beasthood. He is finally reduced to a violent animal who takes what he wants by force, and he dies in a futile attempt to regain what is now forever beyond his reach, a human heart. Now, Dumbledore talking about the human heart, the whole distillation of themes thing is, Nick, tell me you didn't think of, in the end, it did not matter that you could not close your mind, Harry. It was your heart that saved you.
Yeah.
Okay. That the heart, and that's really not the the theme, the heart theme climax is in Deathly Hallows. Okay. And she reveals there that the heart is not about emotions and relationships per se. It's not the Valentine's Day, sentiment. It's the human spiritual center. And I'll put a link down below to the thing where I talk about the heart that I wrote up for the Ink Black Hearts, big part of my thesis. The heart here is the human spiritual center. In Hallows, which again is really Rowling has said that she didn't think of the books as 7 individual novels, but as one book cut up into 7 segments. So Hallows is really the climb, is the ending of the Hogwarts Saga itself. The critical moments in that book and in the transformation of Ron Weasley and Harry Potter are described with repeated references to their hearts and the light and darkness within and around them. More than the Half-Blood Prince or even the Harry heart, this is where we find the clearest reference to what it means to have become, black-hearted and how to overcome it. This use of the heart as the home of the noetic faculty or spirit is in keeping with traditional teaching across all the great revelations. I mean, Rowling talks about, we see these stories in all these different cultures. The heart, okay, and the eye of the heart, especially in Christianity, though it's a great departure from prevalent Valentine's Day sentiments about the heart as the metaphorical home for the affection and emotion. This is, the common ground of all the great revealed traditions. Harry and Ron's illumined hearts after their time in inky blackness in Deathly Hallows are signs of their enlightenment and self-transcendence, not emotional or affectionate accomplishment. Now, Ron, you remember when Ron comes back to Harry and Hermione in Goblet of Fire, that's instant, waterworks for me. I can't even talk about that scene after the first, challenge, whatever, in the Triwizard Tournament without weeping. Okay. But right up there with that is when Ron Weasley abandoned his 2 friends on their Horcrux destruction quest. Okay. He immediately regretted his decision, but had no way to find them. His means of return, however, have been given to him by Albus Dumbledore in his will. The same will that gives Hermione that, the book, the Beedle the Bard. Dumbledore left Ron the Deluminator, a magical device that can capture the light in any space and return it at the click of a button. To Ron's surprise, it works in the loving heart as well. As he explained to Harry and Hermione after his return in the Forest of Dean and his providential rescue of Harry from the Locket Horcrux, on Nativity, when he was safe at the Burrow, he had heard Hermione call his name, a voice calling from the Deluminator in his pocket. When he clicked the device, a ball of light appeared outside, which when he approached it, enter into his heart and took him to his friends. Now, this is worth quoting. I mean, it sort of floated towards me, said Ron, illustrating the movement with his free index finger, right to my chest. And then it just went straight through. It was here. He touched the point close to his heart. I could feel it. It was hot. And once it was inside me, I knew what I was supposed to do. I knew it would take me where I needed to go. So I disapparated and came out on the side of the hill. There was snow everywhere. Okay. Great scene. Ron, in brief, first surrenders in selfless faith to the light in his heart on Christmas morning. And that's not a small thing, right? Yes, it's the incarnation. The incarnation of the word happens at the Annunciation, but the revelation of the incarnation is on Christmas. Okay, he surrenders himself in faith, and then the love he feels for his friends then returns to them. He risks his own life to rescue Harry in the pool, and he confronts in the locket Horcrux the eyes of Lord Voldemort, who tell him, I have seen your heart, and it is mine. Having been literally illumined, however, Ron's heart is no longer dark or the Dark Lord's, and he is able to master sufficient will to destroy his worst fears and insecurities, which the eye bubbles incarnate and exteriorize. All right. Now, so that's Ron's transformative phrase. It's all about his heart, right? It's his spiritual center. Rowling, as noted, said repeatedly after Deathly Hallows was published that the most meaningful chapter in it, with the King's Cross dialogue, as a key to the book, was chapter 34, The Forest Again. She said that 3 times, 3 different interviews. Okay, it's not an especially long chapter at 14 pages. King's Cross, for example, is 18 pages. And the Silver Doe, which is the one she always uses in public readings, is 25 pages. That chapter, though, Into the Forest, is laden with references to hearts, light, and the mind's eye. He felt his heart pounding fiercely in his chest. How strange that in his dread of death, it pumped all the harder, valiantly keeping him alive. But it would have to stop, and soon its beats were numbered. His heart was leaping against his ribs like a frantic bird. Perhaps it knew it had little time left. Perhaps it was determined to fulfill a lifetime's beats before the end. The Death Eater seemed as scared as Harry, whose heart was now throwing itself against his ribs as though determined to escape the body he was about to cast aside. Harry also thinks about his bounding heart and his mind's eye, and he frightens Neville Longbottom sufficiently that he complains, "Blimey, Harry, you nearly gave me heart failure." In addition to these explicit cardiac references, Harry, in something akin to Ron's experiences with the Illuminator, feels the light within him give him the strength he needs to face death as a willing sacrifice. He summons the departed souls of his parents, godfather, and favorite teacher with the resurrection stone Dumbledore had left him in his will. The soul memories or spirits that present themselves to Harry, all of whom died to protect him from the Dark Lord or his Death Eaters, tell him, we are part of you. And they acted like Patronuses to him with respect to protecting him from Dementors in the forest. Now remember, a Patronus, as we learned in Prisoner, is nothing but light, an exteriorization or projection of hope, happiness, the desire to survive, and, again from Prisoner, it cannot feel despair. Now, Harry had been saved only an hour earlier than this walk into the forest from Dementors in the Battle of Hogwarts. He's despairing. He's unable to cast his protective spell of exteriorized inner light. His friends in Dumbledore's army protect him with their Patronuses, as he had taught them to. The repeated references to his heart and mind's eye, as well as this spectral light within him, the souls of 3 men and a woman who died in sacrificial love for him, are markers of that sacrificial love that Harry exhibited in dying to save his friends. Whence, really, that's the source, that's the power of Harry's great victory over the Dark Lord at dawn in the Great Hall. Now, I mean, if you've been following along but what day are we on now? What day is it? We got. I'm counting backwards now. 31, 30. We're the 28th here, right?
Yeah.
If you've been following along on this, I've been beating this drum all along. That Rowling, if you want to understand Rowling's life and work, is that she is writing allegories of the soul's journey to perfection in the spirit. In Harry Potter, she did this via the Soul Triptych with Harry, Ron, and Hermione in the roles of the heart, the body, and the rational mind. In Cormoran Strike, she's writing Shakespearean or Spencerian psychomachia. Think Romeo and Juliet, think Red Cross Knight and Una, with Robin and her partner as two birds, or Castor and Pollux, hero and demigod, Psyche and Cupid. Each must transcend their soul self or ego existence and that understanding for identity with the logos, love in their heart, their transpersonal and spiritual capacity. Okay. Now, if you read, any of the Strike novels, especially Ink Black Heart, with the idea of the heart as the home of the sentiments, romantic feeling, or just affection, as important as these things are in Shakespearean allegory as metaphors for the heart as intellect or nous, the eye of the soul, is to miss what Rowling is after here. Okay. And those people are also really frustrated, Nick, that forgive me if the Harpies are out there. Hi, Harpies. Is that they're really frustrated with this prolonged tease of the Strike Ellicott seemingly endless mating dance. If you think of the heart conventionally rather than traditionally, I'm convinced you're going to miss what the Victorian women poets that Rowling quotes for epigraphs mean by heart. Theirs is not a moony sentimentality pining for relationships with men, but per Mary Elizabeth Coleridge's relationship and spiritual mentor, as Samuel Taylor Coleridge was to most Victorians with esoteric leanings, from Ruskin and the Cambridge Platonists to Dodgson and MacDonald. This is a specifically Christian longing for transcendence of the world and Christ, the heart's victory over death. You really get that in a lot of Victorian iconography, especially in Catholic churches. You get the heart of Jesus with the crown of thorns over it. That spiritual heart, a la Coleridge, and its link with this logos idea is it's the germ of all English high fantasy, really, through Dodgson or Lewis Carroll and MacDonald, who shape and form the Inklings later. This is really the tradition that Rowling, she's very different. She's a very subversive form of this compared to the relatively institutional church people like Tolkien and Lewis and Williams. But she is definitely of that stream. And that heart element in this story, the hairy heart, is given its most graphic representation. A person that ignores their heart, denies their heart this capacity for empathy and relationship with other people. With love, selfless, unconditional love is not superhuman, as Dumbledore observes, but inhuman, even a beast, an animal. And Rowling in her stories is trying to do just the opposite. Certainly in the Tales of Beedle the Bard, Nick, she puts that in the center because that's the centerpiece. You got to get the heart right, or you're not really human. Your imagination is off. If you're not able to imagine better, as she says, then you're all the privilege you have for graduating from Harvard is lost. It's been a waste. That's the message she's trying to give to her readers. And nowhere more powerfully than in that central story of the Tales of Beedle the Bard.
And I think key as well is this is a message, at least initially, she wanted to give to those 6 people. She said in interviews, most of the stories from Beedle the Bard, she got Ron to say a funny line like Babbity Rabbity and her cackling stump, and then she had to make up a story around it. The 3 brothers, well, she had to make up the story because that's key. It's a key plot and a great story. But that hairy heart, that's the message that this book of fairy tales wouldn't be complete without. That's the one she had to create.
It really is. It's the beating heart, not only of her work, and in a way, it's a key. She calls it the distillation of the themes of the Harry Potter stories. It's the distillation of why she writes and what she's written. Big shout out, thank you to that reader that recommended we go back and do this, because here we are. We've got this is
two
the
more
29th, so we've got 2 more days. It was great to have I really, when I was reviewing it for this thing, I was just like, oh wow, we almost missed this. We almost missed Harry Hart. This is great, and now we've got we've got the day before, and we've got the actual birthday.
Now I know somebody. We've done 2 shows on golden threads, but honestly, they were 125-mile-an-hour go-throughs, and I know we pointed people to pregnancy traps, but that's a 2.5-hour podcast. Is there a golden thread we can look at with a bit of depth, because we're getting some interest in the comments?
Yeah, this is kind of a nightmare choice here, because I said in the introduction to that longest conversation we've got 2 of them, right? About golden threads, is that this has really got to be the focus of the 4th generation of Rowling studies. Is you've got to look at the work as a whole and see the things that run like the golden thread through everything. Well, when you talk about golden threads, you're obliged to talk about everything. You got to go through every single book and talk about how it reflects. And so, we did Bad Dad, and we gave 3 for instances of bad dad or violence against women. You can get 3 for instances in a chapter of Career of Evil for violence against women, right? I mean, it's to do any kind of comprehensive survey of the plot point, you've really got to go into it. So it's like, either you do it like we did the ring writing thing, and it wound up being less than 50 minutes. It was by far the shortest thing we did, because I was trying so hard to just let's keep this small, because this thing is going to explode like the snake's coming out of a can, And I'm sorry if people really had big hopes for the ring writing thing. That's we really tried to keep that in strict confinement. But as Nick just said, when we did the golden threads thing, if you're going to do it right, it goes on and on and on to really. So when you come to the end of it, you say, well, I get it. That's a golden thread. There's no denying that. So we're getting near the end, though. So I think we can give ourselves a hard one. We can say, okay, let's choose one of the golden threads that people don't see as a rule, and yet is in almost everything. And we'll go through it quickly. We won't really describe how it works in each one, but enough so you can say, oh yeah, that is a for instance of that subject. And the reason I chose this one, not only because it's one people don't see, is because it segues to another question. We had a wonderful. I always had this back and forth with Kathleen O'Connor in the comment thread. She's really interested in the allegorical meaning of troubled blood, especially in terms of Theodosia Loveridge and her death from an ectopic pregnancy. That, and how that plays in terms of Margot Bamborough's death and stuff. I mean, it's the whole Spencerian thing, and yet it gives you this very odd feeling that in some sense that Margot Bamborough was being judged for having taken Gloria Conti to that abortion clinic. Now that makes everybody go, oh my gosh, because Gloria Conti has some kind of misgiving about the whole thing too. Margot saved my life, bravest woman I ever knew, and yet every year I grieve the death of this child. I mean, that's a sideways experience of that event. It's one I regret, but I couldn't be more grateful for the person that led me to it. It's like, okay, that's a person of 2 minds. And so the reason I chose, after speaking with you, Nick, that we would close this adventure with the golden thread of the lost child, is because it segues to a discussion of how you understand Rowling's work in light of that lost child thing. That'll give some light, at least, on the blind spot or dark spot of people thinking about Gloria Conti's decision to kill her child. Now that's how we're going to finish. And Nick and I have got a little work to do, because I spent 6 weeks doing pregnancy traps before we did the podcast, where I went through every book and spelled it out and how it worked. We're not going to do that, but we are going to try to talk about what was the last count? Was 28 lost children.
Yes.
and 12 kind of sort of, you know.
But I think we're still counting, right, John? So
Yes.
that may change. That may change.
Every time I go through, I'm like, oh, you know, I forgot Neville, you know. Oh, Neville, hey, come on, how can you forget Neville? You know, his parents aren't even there, you know. I'm like, okay, his parents are there, but they're not really there, you know. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. Is Nick and I are going to talk. We're going to play pickleball again. We're going to go back and forth, you know, with name that lost child, explain the 2 different type of lost child we get inside the series, all the series. We're talking about everything, and then we'll segue to so what? What is? Well, we'll speculate a bit about what the crisis, because there's, you know, we don't really know what. There's no lost child that we know of in Rowling's life that gives you that crisis, and so.
There's some possibilities, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, and then we have to decide. So what? What does that mean? How do you? Because if you don't go to what it means and how it helps you understand the work better, then it's just gossip.
Yeah,
you know? And
which is not what we're about at Hogpride.
Yeah, that's definitely a Harry Hart thing, you know. Let's get some clickbait, Nick. All right. So thanks again to our reader who urged us to do this, and God willing, we will have checked the boxes for the people that wrote in, asked us these things, and it will be something of an event. It'll be a happy birthday for Rowling to see that people are taking her work this seriously and trying to figure out what she's about from her lake and shed metaphor.
Okay. I'll see everyone tomorrow, and I'll see you tomorrow too, John.
Take care.